Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news this Wednesday evening, so let's begin. First up, the first major candidate filed for his spot in First in the Nation primary was Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg filing for First in the Nation primary says he's counting on winning it. South Bend mayor signs declaration of candidacy, pays $1,000 fee to become first major candidate on ballot. After becoming the first major candidate to file for the First in the Nation primary Wednesday, Mayor Buttigieg said he's counting on winning it, but realizes it will be tough battle with two neighbors in the Democratic race. Buttigieg, the 37-year-old mayor from South Bend, Indiana, was the first major candidate to file after being welcomed by Secretary of State Bill Gardner to his office, which was packed with media as several hundred supporters chanted President Pete in the outside hallway. The first to file was Mark Stewart of Connecticut, as he was in 2016. Also filing ahead of Buttigieg was Rocky D. LaFont of California, businessman. The next major candidate to file will be Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who is scheduled for Thursday at 11:30 a.m. At Buttigieg's side when he filed were three of his top Granite State supporters, longtime Democratic activist John Rahu and Mary Rahu, as well as Stony Field Farm founder and party activist donor Gary Hinchberg. Recent New Hampshire polls have consistently shown Buttigieg in the top 4 or 5 candidates, trailing Sanders and Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, as well as former Vice President Joe Biden. He said he is offering a message bold enough to get the job done, can unify Americans. After filing, Buttigieg spoke to several hundred supporters at a rally on the State House lawn. He then headed to Milford for a downtown walking tour and planned a town hall event at Peterborough Town Hall on Wednesday evening. On Thursday, Buttigieg will hold another town hall event, this one at the Derry Opera House. Son of Pelham Church shooting victim says father still in critical condition. Bishop Stanley Choate wounded in shooting during wedding. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Andy Hirschberger.
Well, Sean, the statement was delivered by the bishop's son, who thanked people for their support and asked for privacy through their healing and recovery process. John Choate says his father, Bishop Stanley Choate, survived multiple gunshot wounds while officiating a wedding at the New England Pentecostal Ministries in Pelham October 12th. The bride was also shot in the arm. Dale Holloway has been charged with the shootings, and today the family said that they don't know Holloway, but thanked all of the first responders and medical staff that treated Bishop Choate and gave him a chance to survive.
We want to stress that NEP Ministries does not know the man accused of shooting my father, nor was the shooter a member of the ministry. What I can tell you is the bishop constantly preaches love and forgiveness, demonstrates kindness by helping anyone he could, always trying to do the right thing, and his family and congregation alike respect and honor him.
John Choate also said that that Bishop Stanley Choate is truly a man of God. He's also authored several books and has recorded 2 gospel albums, as well as overseeing 5 churches. Reporting live, I'm Andy Hirschberger, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Governor Chris Sununu unveils bipartisan plan to address affordable housing shortage. Plan includes tax reconstructing to create investment incentives. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
More than a business, a passion. With the help of Bluehost's powerful...
In this case, it's all in the numbers when it comes to housing in New Hampshire.
We know that the vacancy rate right now in the state is around or just under 1%.
Especially lacking is affordable housing, evidenced by this chart showing the cost to rent a 2-bedroom apartment statewide. Wednesday, Governor Sununu announced the recommendations of a bipartisan task force charged with increasing the amount of affordable housing.
First, the plan enhances local control by giving communities the tools they need to plan and develop affordable housing.
The plan aims to improve predictability, in part by imposing a 65-day limit for planning boards to render a decision, and also calls for tax restructuring and other incentives to encourage development. The plan also calls for removing the real estate transfer tax for homes less than $300,000.
For a lot of younger workforce that we're trying to bring to the state, some of the median home prices are still pretty high. And so we're trying to find some ways to acknowledge that issue.
While some of the items recommended can be accomplished by executive action, there are also 2 bills that will be introduced with bipartisan sponsorship.
I'm looking forward to working with all stakeholders in the legislature, the housing world, and in our communities to make sure these bills are as effective as possible.
Supporters of the legislation to be introduced admit there's a long way to go when it comes to solving the affordable housing crisis, but they say this legislation represents a big first step. Reporting live in Franklin, Ray Brewer, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Several communities delaying trick-or-treating. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
There are 2 things that scare me most in this world: clowns and spiders. This is my nightmare. There are a lot of incredible spooks at this Salem home, and they're going to need to stay a couple of extra days for the trick-or-treaters. The frights of Halloween are upon us. If you want a good scare this year, Seed Street in Salem is the place to be.
We just try to make it fun for the kids. You know, a lot of people don't even put their lights on anymore for the trick-or-treaters.
Because of potential rain on Thursday, the town is delaying trick-or-treating to Saturday night. The Saracens hope to get a big crowd.
Maybe even more because it's on a weekend now.
Salem is one of at least a dozen communities in New Hampshire to postpone trick-or-treating.
The area chiefs actually spoke together, and they're the ones that pretty much designate when Halloween is going to take place. So you have Hudson, Salem, Windham, and Pelham all have moved to Saturday night.
Safety is driving that decision.
Come Thursday night, the rain's going to be coming down. There's going to be wind. We don't want tree limbs coming down. Obviously, we don't want visibility issues when you have kids out in the neighborhoods.
Pelham police are also collecting candy donations. Neighbors on Blueberry Circle are offering treats Saturday night at the end of their driveways for anyone with mobility issues.
We'll also set up a police cruiser, and we'll be giving out candy as well. I think the officer's going to dress up.
Whether celebrating Thursday or this weekend, officials want people to be careful and have fun. To see a complete list of when each town or city will host trick-or-treating, visit this story on our website at WMUR.com. And happy Halloween. In Salem, Mike Cronin, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Harris campaign cuts headquarters staff, moves some to Iowa. California Senator Kamala Harris is increasing the Iowa stakes for her sagging Democratic presidential campaign, with her campaign laying off several dozen staff members and transferring others from early states Nevada and New Hampshire to the lead-off caucus state. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market closed for this Wednesday evening. And here's a look at that U.S. stock market for all of you. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the green and went up. Your Nasdaq closed in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed in the green and went up. Oil closed in the red and went down. US 10-year closed in the red and went down. Euro/USD closed flat. And VIX closed in the red and went down. S&P 500 closes at record as Fed signals no rate hike until inflation rises significantly. Stocks rose on Wednesday as investors cheered the Federal Reserve's third rate cut of the year, and comments from Chairman Jerome Powell that signaled it would be a while before the central bank hikes rates. White House officials give explosive testimony on Trump. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
As the House prepares for a full floor vote tomorrow, there is new fallout this morning from the explosive testimony of the White House aide and Iraq war veteran on President Trump's Ukraine phone call. He testified that key words and phrases were omitted from the official transcript of that call, and our senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce is on Capitol Hill with the details. Good morning, Mary.
George, good morning. Well, there were always gaps in the White House version of the transcript of this call, but the White House said that was just a voice trailing off or a pause in the conversation. But now a key witness who was listening in on that call and was tasked with editing this transcript reportedly says the details were left out. This morning, new questions about the handling of the call at the center of this impeachment inquiry. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, the first witness with first-hand knowledge of that call to testify, reportedly told investigators that crucial phrases were left out of the White House transcript of the call. According to the New York Times, Vindman, a top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council, testified that on the call, the president claimed there were recordings of former Vice President Joe Biden discussing corruption. You can see the ellipses here in the version of the Reports that Vindman also recalled that Ukrainian President Zelensky made an explicit mention on the call of the energy company where Biden's son, Hunter, served on the board. Vindman tried to add those details to the reconstructed White House transcript of the call, but according to the Times, his edits were not included, and it's not clear why.
I want to thank Colonel Vindman for his courage in coming forward.
In 10.5 hours of testimony, Vindman told lawmakers he was disturbed by what he heard on that call and the pressure that President Trump was putting on the Ukrainian leader to investigate the Bidens. Vindman told them, "I did not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen," adding that it would undermine U.S. national security. Behind closed doors, the deposition grew heated, lawmakers shouting at each other. Democrats are accusing Republicans of asking questions in an effort to determine the whistleblower's identity. But Vindman, a decorated war veteran, says he reported his concerns out of a sense of duty and insists he is not the whistleblower and does not know who that person is. Now, Vindman's account also seems to contradict the testimony of Gordon Sondland. He's the U.S. ambassador to the EU, and he testified that no one ever raised concerns with him about his approach to Ukraine. But George Vindman says he did just that he told Sondland that his comments were inappropriate. So, George, lawmakers are likely to have some additional questions for the ambassador.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Sondland cleans that up. Meantime, Mary, the House is set for that floor vote on the impeachment process tomorrow.
And, George, this vote is going to lay out what comes next in this next phase of this investigation, including the procedures for those public hearings that are expected to begin here sometime in the next few weeks.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Hi, everyone.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that did it for this evening edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all enjoyed watching this Wednesday evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Good night and bye, everyone.